Most people spend their entire lives waiting for a miracle, completely blind to the fact that they're swimming in an ocean of miracles right now. Here's what's going to shock you. While you've been desperately praying for God to show up and do something extraordinary in your life, He's already been performing thousands of quiet miracles that you've been taking for granted every single day. That breath you just took without thinking about it? Miracle. Your heart beating perfectly while you sleep? Miracle. The fact that you woke up this morning with a clean slate and fresh opportunities despite yesterday's failures? Pure, unearned grace working overtime in your life. But here's where most people get it completely backwards, and this might make you uncomfortable. We've been taught that we need to earn God's attention through perfect behavior, consistent morning prayer habits, or by finally getting our lives together before we're worthy of His blessings. That's not just wrong. It's the exact opposite of how grace actually works. God's grace isn't waiting for you to become good enough to receive it. It's been actively sustaining, protecting, and blessing you precisely because you can't earn it. Every thank you, Lord moment you've ever experienced wasn't a reward for your performance. It was an undeserved gift flowing from love that chose you before you even knew you needed choosing. What I'm about to share with you will transform your entire relationship with prayer, gratitude, and faith. Instead of approaching your daily prayer like a beggar hoping God might notice you, you're going to discover that you're actually a beloved child who's been surrounded by countless expressions of divine love that you've been missing because nobody ever taught you how to recognize them. Your gratitude prayer is about to become the most powerful spiritual practice you've ever experienced, not because you'll start asking for more, but because you'll finally see how much you've already been given. Are you ready to have your eyes opened to the grace that's been quietly transforming your life all along? You know, there's something absolutely fascinating about grace that most people completely miss. It's not the dramatic, flashy miracle we often imagine. It's actually the quiet, invisible force that's been sustaining your life this very moment. Think about it. Your heart has been beating without you telling it to. Your lungs have been breathing while you've been distracted by 1,000 other things, and somehow you woke up this morning without having to earn that privilege. That's grace in action, my friend, and it's been working overtime in your life long before you even thought to say a morning prayer. Here's what's truly remarkable. Most of us spend our days rushing around, completely unaware that we're swimming in an ocean of unearned blessings. Your morning coffee, the roof over your head, even the ability to read these words right now, none of these were guaranteed to you. Yet there they are, like quiet gifts wrapped in the ordinary moments of your day. I remember talking to a surgeon once who told me that every successful operation felt like witnessing grace, because despite all his training and skill, there were simply too many variables for it to work perfectly every single time. That's when it hit me. We're surrounded by daily prayer-worthy moments that we barely notice. The beautiful thing about recognizing this silent grace is that it completely shifts your perspective on gratitude. Instead of waiting for something big to happen to feel thankful, you start seeing that thank you Lord moments are literally everywhere. Your phone battery that lasted through an important call, the stranger who held the elevator, even the fact that you can taste your food. These aren't random occurrences. They're expressions of God's grace flowing through the ordinary fabric of your existence. And once you start noticing them, well, that's when something interesting begins to happen in your relationship with prayer itself. Here's something that might surprise you. The most powerful prayers often begin before we even say a word. There's this magical moment, and I mean truly magical, when you deliberately pause your racing mind and take that first intentional breath. It's like hitting the reset button on your entire nervous system. Your shoulders drop, your jaw unclenches, and suddenly you're not fighting the world anymore. That simple act of breathing deeply isn't just relaxation. It's actually your first step into recognizing God's grace. You're acknowledging that even the air filling your lungs right now is a gift you didn't have to work for. I've noticed something fascinating about people who've mastered the art of meaningful prayer. They don't just dive headfirst into their requests and complaints. Instead, they create what I call a sacred pause, a moment where they consciously shift from the chaos of daily life into the presence of something greater. It's during this pause that your morning prayer transforms from a rushed checklist into a genuine conversation. Think about it like this. If you were meeting with the most important person in your life, you wouldn't burst through the door mid-sentence, would you? You'd take a breath, center yourself, and create space for real connection. What's really beautiful about this practice is how it naturally leads you into gratitude before you even realize it. When you slow down and breathe, you can't help but notice the miracle of simply being alive and aware in this moment. Your gratitude prayer doesn't start with words. It starts with this recognition that you're here, you're breathing, and something infinitely loving has been taking care of the basics while you weren't even paying attention. And that realization, well, that's when your heart begins to open to see just how much grace has been quietly working in your life all along. Now, here's where things get really interesting, and honestly, a bit uncomfortable for most of us. We live in a world that operates on earning, deserving, and proving ourselves worthy of good things. You work hard for your paycheck, you study for good grades, you treat people well to maintain friendships. It's a system that makes sense to our human minds. But then comes this radical concept of forgiveness through grace, and it flips everything upside down. The Bible puts it beautifully in Ephesians 2 verses 8 to 9. Salvation is a gift, not something we can earn through good behavior or perfect morning prayer attendance. That's simultaneously the most liberating and terrifying truth you'll ever encounter. I'll tell you what really gets me about this kind of forgiveness. It doesn't wait for you to get your act together first. Think about the last time you messed up, really messed up. Maybe you said something hurtful, made a selfish decision, or let someone down who was counting on you. What was your first instinct? Probably to hide, to make excuses, or to work extra hard to somehow balance the scales. But here's what's absolutely mind-blowing. God's grace was already there before you even realized you needed it. It wasn't waiting for your apology, your improved behavior, or your promise to do better. It was just there, like oxygen, ready to be received the moment you stopped trying to earn it. This kind of unconditional forgiveness does something profound to your daily prayer life. Instead of approaching prayer like a defendant trying to convince a judge, you start coming like a beloved child who knows they're already accepted. Your thank you, Lord moments become less about trying to impress and more about genuine amazement at this love that doesn't fluctuate based on your performance. And when you really grasp this, when it sinks deep into your bones, you start to understand that if this kind of grace exists for your worst moments, then perhaps there's something even more extraordinary waiting to be discovered about how it works in every other area of your life. You know what's absolutely revolutionary about God's love? It doesn't come with a renovation clause. Most of us have been conditioned to believe that love, real, deep love, requires us to be better versions of ourselves first. We think we need to lose weight, get our finances in order, stop that bad habit, or finally become the person we've always wanted to be before we're truly worthy of unconditional acceptance. But here's what will blow your mind. God's grace operates on a completely different system. It says, I love you right now, with your messy emotions, your unfinished dreams, your fears, and yes, even with that thing you're ashamed of that you think disqualifies you from love. I remember counseling a woman who couldn't bring herself to pray because she felt too broken. Her word, not mine. She'd been carrying guilt from past mistakes for years, convinced that she needed to clean herself up before approaching God. When she finally understood that her morning prayer didn't require her to be perfect first, something beautiful happened. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "You mean I can come as I am, right now?" That's the moment she discovered what millions of people never realize. That's when "Thank You, Lord" becomes less about performance and more about genuine amazement at being known completely and loved anyway. But this kind of acceptance, it's just the beginning of understanding how deep this grace actually goes. Acceptance isn't the reward for becoming good enough. It's the foundation that makes growth possible. When you know you're loved unconditionally, you're free to become who you're meant to be without the desperate fear of losing that love if you stumble. This acceptance transforms your entire relationship with prayer and faith. Your gratitude prayer stops being about trying to convince God you deserve His attention and starts being about marveling at a love that chose you before you even knew you needed choosing. You begin to see that every daily prayer is an invitation to experience this radical acceptance all over again. And here's what's really beautiful. When you truly believe you're accepted as you are, you stop hiding your real struggles and start bringing your authentic self to prayer. Here's something that'll absolutely blow your mind when you really start paying attention. Every single day, you're the recipient of a triple miracle that most people completely overlook. First, there's provision. Somehow, you had air to breathe, food to eat, and shelter to protect you through the night. Then there's protection. Countless disasters that could have happened simply didn't, thanks to invisible interventions you'll never even know about. And finally, there's renewal. You woke up with a clean slate, a fresh opportunity to start over regardless of yesterday's mistakes. That's God's grace operating as your personal life support system, bodyguard, and reset button, all rolled into one incredible daily package that never requires a subscription fee or proof of worthiness. I once counseled a man who'd lost his job, gone through a messy divorce, and was convinced his life was over at 55. But here's what happened. Every morning for 6 months, he practiced recognizing these 3 forms of grace. He'd wake up grateful that he had a place to sleep, provision, thankful that he'd made it safely through another night, protection, and hopeful that today could be different from yesterday, new beginnings. Slowly, his perspective shifted from "everything is falling apart" to "I'm being sustained, guarded, and given fresh chances every single day." Within 8 months, he'd started a consulting business, found a healthier relationship, and discovered a sense of purpose he'd never had in his previous life. That transformation didn't happen because his circumstances magically improved overnight. It happened because he learned to see grace operating in the fundamentals of daily existence. The beautiful thing about recognizing this triple grace is that it makes your morning prayer incredibly rich and grounded. Instead of immediately jumping into your wish list for God, you start by acknowledging the massive foundation of blessing you're already standing on. Your daily prayer becomes a celebration of being sustained, protected, and renewed before you even ask for anything else. And your gratitude prayer? It transforms from occasional thankfulness for big events to constant amazement at the reliability of divine care that shows up every single day without fail. When you really grasp how consistent this provision, protection, and renewal is, you begin to trust that this same gracious attention is probably being applied to areas of your life you haven't even thought to notice yet. Your "Thank You, Lord" moments multiply because you realize that waking up each day isn't just another ordinary occurrence. It's actually a daily demonstration of love that never gives up on you. There's something absolutely magical about the way certain people enter your life at exactly the moment you need them most. That friend who called just when you were feeling completely alone, the mentor who appeared when you were stuck and directionless, or even that stranger who said exactly the right thing at exactly the right time. And then there are the opportunities. The job posting you stumbled across the day after deciding to make a change, the chance encounter that led to your biggest breakthrough, the random conversation that opened a door you didn't even know existed. These aren't cosmic coincidences. They're God's grace using human connections and divine timing to orchestrate circumstances that move your life forward in ways you could never have planned or manipulated on your own. I'll never forget my friend Lisa's story. She'd been praying for months about whether to start her own business, but was terrified to leave her stable job. One morning, while grabbing coffee before work, she literally bumped into a woman who turned out to be a successful entrepreneur in her exact field. Not only did this woman offer to mentor her, but she also introduced Lisa to her first 3 clients and helped her secure startup funding. Was it luck that they collided at that specific coffee shop on that particular morning? Or was it grace orchestrating a meeting that would change the entire trajectory of Lisa's career? When you start recognizing these patterns, how relationships and opportunities seem to align in impossibly perfect ways, your morning prayer becomes less about asking God to send you what you need and more about preparing your heart to recognize what He's already sending. The really beautiful part about this divine networking is that it works both ways. Just as grace brings people and opportunities into your life when you need them, it also positions you to be the answer to someone else's prayers. That skill you developed during your difficult season becomes exactly what helps someone else through theirs. Your gratitude prayer expands to include thankfulness for being used as an instrument of grace in other people's stories. Your daily prayer shifts from just asking for doors to open to also asking for wisdom to recognize when you're supposed to be the one opening doors for others. And when you truly understand this reciprocal flow of grace through relationships and opportunities, your thank you Lord moments multiply exponentially because you realize you're not just a recipient of divine favor, you're also a participant in spreading it. This interconnected web of grace-filled relationships and perfectly timed opportunities, it's actually the foundation that makes growth through difficulties not just possible, but transformative. Here's something that might completely revolutionize how you view your toughest seasons. Every single struggle you've endured has been secretly working as your personal graduate school in life mastery. I'm talking about that job you lost that forced you to discover skills you never knew you had, that relationship that ended badly but taught you what real love actually looks like, or that health scare that completely reordered your priorities in the most beautiful way. What looks like chaos from the inside is actually God's grace using difficult circumstances to develop character, wisdom, and resilience that you could never gain through easy living. It's like having a divine personal trainer who knows exactly which challenges will make you stronger, even when you're convinced the workout might kill you. But here's what's absolutely mind-blowing about this process. Right in the middle of your most overwhelming moments, grace delivers this supernatural peace that doesn't make any logical sense. Your bills are piling up, your relationships are strained, your future feels uncertain, and yet somehow, you find yourself weirdly okay. Not because you're in denial or practicing positive thinking, but because something deeper than your circumstances is anchoring you in unshakable calm. I remember watching my neighbor go through a brutal divorce, and instead of becoming bitter and broken, she developed this radiant strength and wisdom that drew people to her for advice. When I asked how she maintained such peace during such chaos, she said, "I learned that storms don't last forever, but the person you become while navigating them does." That's grace transforming your pain into your greatest source of power. The beautiful thing about recognizing this transformative grace is that it completely changes your relationship with difficulty. Your morning prayer shifts from, "God, please make my life easier, to God, please give me wisdom to learn what you're trying to teach me through this. Your daily prayer becomes less about avoiding all problems and more about developing the spiritual muscle to handle whatever comes with grace and growth. And your gratitude prayer? It expands to include thankfulness for the hard lessons, because you start recognizing how they've shaped you into someone capable of helping others through similar struggles. When you really understand that your difficulties are actually customized curriculum designed to develop you into your highest potential, your thank you Lord moments begin, including even the painful seasons, because you realize they weren't punishments. They were preparation for something greater than you could have imagined. This kind of transformative grace that brings growth through chaos, it's actually pointing you toward the ultimate truth about divine love, that it's not just present during your good moments, but it's actively working for your benefit even when life feels completely out of control. Here's the most beautiful truth you'll ever discover about God's grace. It doesn't have an expiration date, a performance requirement, or a limit on how many times you can mess up before it runs out. This isn't the conditional love you've experienced with humans who love you when you're good, tolerate you when you're difficult, and distance themselves when you're at your worst. This is love that actually grows stronger in your weakest moments, presence that draws closer when you feel most alone, and grace that multiplies when you're convinced you've used up your quota of second chances. Even when you can't feel it, can't see it, and honestly can't understand how it's possible, this love is there, steady as your heartbeat, reliable as sunrise, and more persistent than your worst day. What's absolutely incredible is how this eternal presence transforms you into a conduit of the same kind of grace for others. When you truly grasp that you're unconditionally loved, you start loving others without keeping score. When you understand that you've been forgiven for things you didn't even know you needed forgiveness for, you begin offering that same radical forgiveness to people who've hurt you. That coworker who drives you crazy, that family member who always pushes your buttons, that friend who let you down when you needed them most. Suddenly you see them through different eyes. You realize that your morning prayer isn't just about receiving grace. It's about becoming someone who extends grace. Your daily prayer includes asking not just to be blessed, but to be a blessing. And your gratitude prayer expands to include thankfulness for the privilege of being used as an instrument of divine love in a world that desperately needs more of it. This is where everything we've been talking about comes full circle. The grace that's been sustaining your breath, protecting your steps, providing for your needs, opening doors of opportunity, bringing people into your life at perfect timing, and transforming your struggles into strength. It's all been preparing you for this ultimate realization. You are deeply, permanently, unconditionally loved, and that love wants to flow through you to touch other lives in ways you may never fully know. Your thank you Lord moments become less about what you've received and more about marveling at being chosen as a partner in spreading this incredible love. When you really understand this, when it sinks into your bones that God's grace isn't just something that happens to you, but something that flows through you, you begin to see that every breath you take, every day you're given, every relationship you build is actually an opportunity to demonstrate the same unconditional love that's been quietly transforming your life all along. So here's my challenge for you. Don't let this just be another inspiring message that makes you feel good for a few minutes before you get back to business as usual. The grace we've been talking about isn't just a beautiful concept. It's a living reality that wants to revolutionize every aspect of your daily experience. Starting tomorrow morning, before you even get out of bed, take 60 seconds to recognize 3 things: the provision that sustained you through the night, the protection that brought you safely to a new day, and the fresh opportunity to experience God's grace in brand new ways. But I want you to go deeper than just intellectual recognition. I want you to actually feel the weight of being unconditionally loved. When you mess up tomorrow, and you will because you're human, Instead of spiraling into guilt and shame, I want you to practice receiving grace. Let it wash over your mistakes like warm water over dirty hands. When someone irritates you, remember that you've been given infinite patience, and see if you can extend just a fraction of that same grace to them. When opportunities show up, recognize them as gifts rather than coincidences. When challenges arise, ask yourself what this particular difficulty might be trying to teach you about strength, wisdom, or compassion. Here's what I know will happen if you actually practice this. Your morning prayer will transform from a religious obligation into a daily celebration. Your gratitude prayer will overflow with genuine amazement instead of forced thankfulness. Your daily prayer will become a constant conversation with someone who's been waiting your whole life for you to realize how deeply you're loved. And your thank you, Lord moments? They'll multiply until you can barely go an hour without recognizing another expression of grace working in your life. The question isn't whether this grace exists. It's whether you're ready to open your eyes and heart to receive it fully. Don't let this moment pass you by. If this message stirred something deep inside you, if you felt even a flicker of recognition that maybe, just maybe, you've been more loved and blessed than you ever realized, then make a decision right now to pursue this truth with everything you've got. Subscribe to this channel if you want to keep growing in your understanding of how God's grace works in practical, daily life. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss insights that could transform your perspective on prayer, gratitude, and faith. And here's the most important part. Share this message with someone who needs to be reminded that they're deeply, permanently, unconditionally loved. Because